I grew up in America, where a standard public school lunch was a rectangular slice of pizza, a cardboard carton of chocolate milk, and maybe a fruit cup if you were lucky. That was the baseline. It was processed, it was predictable, and it was mostly harmless. But then I moved to the UK a couple of years ago, and I started talking to my British friends about what they ate growing up. I was literally shocked. The things British kids were fed in school would absolutely send an American child into a coma. We need to talk about this because British school dinners are this bizarre, heavily nostalgic world of animal fat, mystery meat, and more carbs than I have ever seen on a single plastic tray. The food culture here is entirely different, and the school cafeterias are where it all begins. Here are 9 British school foods Americans would absolutely never survive. Number 9. Toad in the hole. Let us just start with the name. As an American, if you tell me I am eating a toad in a hole for lunch, I am calling Child Protective Services. In the US, we would never name a food after an amphibian unless it was a gummy candy. But in the UK, this is a beloved classic. Here is the truth about what it actually is. It is a bunch of pork sausages baked directly into a giant Yorkshire pudding batter. If you do not know what Yorkshire pudding is, think of a savoury pancake batter that puffs up in the oven. Historically, this dish was created centuries ago as a way to stretch out expensive meat by hiding it in cheap filling batter. The school dinner ladies would bake massive metal trays of this stuff, slice it into heavy squares, and drown it in onion gravy. It is incredibly dense. An American kid eating this at noon would be asleep at their desk by 1. British kids just eat it and casually go play football in the freezing rain. Number 8. The jacket potato with tuna and sweet corn. Americans know baked potatoes. We load them with sour cream, cheddar cheese, maybe some bacon bits, and we usually eat them as a side dish with steak. British schools take a massive, steaming hot baked potato, which they call a jacket potato, and they use it as the entire main course. That part is fine, but the topping is where I draw the line. They take a cold mixture of canned tuna fish, heavy mayonnaise, and sweet corn kernels, and they dump it right on top of the hot potato. The temperature difference alone is a sensory nightmare. The cold mayonnaise slowly melts into the hot starch. The sweet corn adds this strange crunch to the fish. I asked my British friends why this exists, and they explained that it was a cheap, high-protein option that did not require actual cooking. It is a staple of the British diet, but an American middle schooler would look at a hot potato covered in cold fish mayo and just walk out of the building. Number 7. Chocolate concrete and pink custard. Desserts in the UK are called puddings, even when they are not actual pudding. Chocolate concrete is exactly what it sounds like. It is a chocolate-baked good that has been cooked until it reaches the structural integrity of a brick. British people speak about this dessert with deep emotional reverence. They describe taking their metal spoons and physically chiseling away at the edge of this rock-hard slab just to get a bite. But you do not eat it dry. To soften the concrete, the school dinner ladies pour a radioactive-looking liquid over it called pink custard. Why is it pink? Nobody knows for sure. It does not taste like strawberries. It just tastes like warm, sweet milk. But the combination of the snapping hard chocolate and the hot pink sludge is the defining memory of British primary school. If you served this in America, parents would complain that it was a dental hazard. Also, this is exactly the kind of thing I go much deeper on with the people who support this channel directly. So if you are sitting there thinking, okay, I need the fuller version of this story, join the membership below. That is where I share the deeper thoughts, the more personal side of all this, and the extra bits I cannot always fit into the main videos. Number 6. Cornflake tart. This is where the British obsession with carbohydrates truly peaks. You take a short crust pastry shell, which is basically a pie crust. You smear a thick layer of strawberry or raspberry jam across the bottom. Then you take actual breakfast cornflakes, mix them with a heavy pour of golden syrup, pack them into the pastry and bake it. It is literally carbs baked inside carbs, held together by pure sugar. The psychology behind these heavy school desserts goes back to post-war Britain. Schools needed to give growing children maximum calories for minimum cost, especially during those long, dark, freezing British winters. They needed fuel. But an American kid eating a slice of cornflake tart for lunch would experience a sugar high so violent they would vibrate through the walls of the gymnasium, followed by a crash that would require medical intervention. British kids just washed it down with a plastic cup of warm tap water and went back to spelling. Number 5. Baked beans on pizza. In the United States, baked beans belong at a summer barbecue, sitting on a paper plate next to some brisket and potato salad. They are sweet, smoky, and flavored with brown sugar and bacon. British baked beans are completely different. They are stewed in a thin, savory tomato sauce, and British people put them on absolutely everything. Toast, potatoes, eggs, and yes, school pizza. The school pizza itself is already a tragedy. It is usually a thick, doughy rectangle with a smear of tomato paste and a questionable layer of cheddar cheese. But then the dinner ladies take a ladle of hot-baked beans and pour it right on top of the pizza or right next to it, so the bean juice completely soaks the crust. The moisture absolutely ruins the structural integrity of the bread. Americans treat pizza with a level of respect. We would never compromise the crust with bean juice. The UK simply does not care. By the way, I need you to hype up this video to show your support if you are actually loving this content. Drop a comment, hit the like button, and let the algorithm know you are here for my complete confusion over British culture. It genuinely helps the channel grow, and it tells me you want more of these deep dives into the weird reality of living over here. Number 4. Jam roly-poly. We need to talk about suet. If you explain to an American that suet is the raw, hard fat found around the kidneys of a cow or a sheep, they will assume you are making dog food or winter bird feed. But in Britain, suet is the magical ingredient that makes their traditional puddings so heavy and dense. Jam roly-poly is a flat suet pudding dough, spread with strawberry jam, rolled up into a thick cylinder, and then steamed or baked. It looks exactly like a bloody severed arm when it comes out of the oven, which is why older generations sometimes called it dead man's arm. It is served drowning in hot yellow custard. The sheer density of this dish is staggering. It hits your stomach like a lead weight. British schools relied on suet puddings because they were incredibly cheap to make and provided a massive amount of energy to keep kids warm. Americans just turned up the central heating. We never had to resort to baking kidney fat to survive a Tuesday afternoon. Quick thing before we get to the worst 2 on this list, the data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. That means you are showing up for the content, but the algorithm has no reason to show you the next video. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Number 3. Spotted Dick. The name alone. If an American middle school cafeteria put the word Spotted Dick on a whiteboard menu, the school board would be facing a massive lawsuit by noon. The local news vans would be parked on the lawn, but in the UK, nobody even blinks. The history of the name is actually pretty simple. In Old English, the word dick or dog was just a slang term for pudding or dough. The spotted part comes from the dried fruit mixed into it. It is another heavy suet pudding, packed with currants or raisins, and served with a lake of hot custard. The flavour is actually quite mild, mostly just tasting like sweet dough and raisins. But an American kid would never make it past the name. The sheer cultural gap between what is acceptable to say in a British lunchroom versus an American one is perfectly summarised by this single dessert. Number 2. The cheese and onion pasty. A pasty is a heavy, flaky pastry dough filled with various ingredients, baked until golden. The most famous is the Cornish pasty, which has historical roots with tin miners in Cornwall who needed a self-contained, high-calorie meal they could carry into the dark mines. The thick pastry crust was originally designed as a handle that the miners would hold with their dirty hands and then throw away. The school dinner version is a massive triangle of flaky pastry stuffed with mashed potatoes, sharp cheddar cheese, and diced onions. Americans might have hot pockets, but those are small and mostly hollow. A British school pasty is a dense brick of pure carbohydrates and dairy. Eating one of these as a child and then being expected to sit completely still in a silent classroom to learn algebra seems physically impossible. The amount of energy required just to digest the pastry would leave you fighting for your life to stay awake. Number 1. Turkey Twizzlers. This is the ultimate legend of British school dinners. You cannot talk about this topic without bringing up the turkey Twizzler. It was a spiral-shaped corkscrew ribbon of processed meat, technically turkey, but mostly water, pork fat, and a cocktail of artificial flavorings and preservatives. They were deep fried and served with a side of potato smiley faces. British kids absolutely worshipped them. They were the peak of the school lunch hierarchy. But then came the Great War of 2005. The celebrity chef Jamie Oliver launched a television series where he went into British schools to expose how unhealthy the food was. He found the turkey Twizzlers, read the ingredients on camera, and launched a massive national campaign to have them permanently banned from schools. The government eventually caved and removed all junk food from the menus. The psychological reaction from the British public was insane. Some mothers were so furious about the ban that they were caught physically passing fast food through the chain link fences of the school playgrounds to their children. The Twizzler became a martyr for a whole generation of British kids who felt their childhoods were ruined by Jamie Oliver. If you mention his name to a British person in their 20s or 30s today, you will still hear genuine anger. Americans have processed school food, but we never had a national scandal that resulted in black market meat spirals being smuggled across school borders. The Twizzler represents a very specific era of British culture, a time when schools just threw processed, curly meat on a tray and called it a day. Living in the UK has taught me that food is never just food. It is history, it is weather, and it is a shared cultural survival mechanism. American kids got fruit cups and rectangular pizza. British kids got suet, kidney fat, concrete chocolate, and a lesson in emotional resilience. I respect it, but I would have absolutely never survived it.